the real answer is just I was very delusional.
Most people call it unrealistic. She calls it that mindset that changed everything. At 21, she quit her job with no plan, no savings, and no clear direction. Just this unshakable belief she could figure it out. Everyone around her thought she was reckless. She'd never started a business before. She didn't know a single entrepreneur. 6 months later, that same delusion turned into $31,000 from scratch. In this conversation, she shares exactly step by step what she did that you can just copy. So let's start right there. What was going through her mind when she finally decided to quit? Patrice, you went from $0 to $30,000 a month in just 6 months. Take us back to that moment when you finally had the courage to take that leap of faith.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's like there's one moment where I actually decided to do it, but there was like a lot of moments before that of thinking about it for, like 2 years. I was working a 9 to 5. So I dropped out of college, started working a 9 to 5, and I was just jumping from job to job because I would get so bored of a job, I would just quit and then have to go and find another job because I wasn't making money online. The turning point for me that when I finally quit was I was talking to my mom, actually, who is not entrepreneurial, not even really supportive of me being in business. But she said this thing, and I had been talking about it obviously for years, how I wanted to get into business and do my own thing and build something big. And she told me, you're living at home, you have no responsibilities, you're 21. When are you ever going to have a better time to just go all in and just like literally risk everything than right now? Because you have no responsibilities. And I was like, damn, that's good advice. So 3 months later, I put in my 2 weeks notice for my job. I quit my job with no plan, didn't even know what school was, didn't know what type of business I was going to start. I was thinking something with like social media, what it felt like. It was this massive risk. But I also was like, there's people a lot dumber than me that have figured it out. You know, if you look at how many successful entrepreneurs are out there, you just do the math and figure like, if they can figure it out, you can probably figure it out as well. So that was kind of my mindset. I was very much just like, I'm either going to make it work or I'm going to learn something.
Was it any story that made you believe that it could work, or was it anything that inspired you to go that path? Because like not a lot of people actually do it. They hear some stories, oh great, get some advice, good motivational quotes from maybe not their mom, but someone.
I think like the real answer is just I was very delusional. Like from the time as early as I can remember, as a toddler, up through middle school, high school, teenage years, like I have always been delusionally optimistic about what I can do. And I've always believed that anything that like somebody else has figured out, I can figure out how to do. And so I think it's this like delusional self-confidence that I can make anything work and that I have an exceptional like skill set to share with the world. And it wasn't even based on facts. It was more so just that I had confidence in myself to be able to figure things out. I didn't think I was born smarter or born more successful than anyone or with it some kind of advantage. In fact, I actually thought that I was dumber and had less advantages and didn't know any entrepreneurs and had all these reasons why I shouldn't succeed. But I had this one thing that I knew I could work harder than anybody I knew. And I knew that I could figure something out. And I had just proven it through school. I was always a high achiever. I was always, like figuring out how do I get an A on a chemistry test? I was not naturally good at chemistry. How do I get an A in math? And I just got straight A's in every subject, not because I was super smart, but because I literally for the entire weekend would just like, if I had a test on Monday, I would spend 12 hours a day studying Saturday, studying Sunday until I literally memorized the textbook. And like, I was not smart enough to just remember the stuff. I had to actually memorize it. So I had this just like delusional work ethic and delusional belief in myself. And so when I saw other people doing it, listened to enough podcasts and I just saw there's opportunities out there. I figured like, if they can do it, I can do it. And it was that simple. It wasn't that had some very specific business, plan or anything. It was just that I knew I wasn't going to spend my life listening to other people. Massive authority problems was definitely a component as well. I did not want to have someone tell me what to do. And I thought that was just like the worst way to live. I was like, I'd rather just fail than live like that. But at the same time, I knew I would figure it out. So I wasn't really too worried about it. I also knew that my end goal of what I wanted to impact the world with was so big. I'm pretty clear on what I want to do long term, that whatever failures or successes I have right now are pretty irrelevant to the long-term goal. They're just part of the journey to build up the capital, the experience, and the connections to do what I ultimately want to do. And so anything I do right now, like anytime I would get on a sales call or try a new business or invest in a mastermind, I always knew like, if this doesn't work out, that's fine. Like I was not stressed about a sale, even when I was broke and I was like literally running out of savings. I was gonna have to move back with my parents. I just knew that like I would like I would be fine because like get on a sales call and instead of being like, oh, I need this sale, I need this $1,000 so I don't have to move back with my parents, I'd be like, I don't even really care. Like genuinely, I didn't care if that person closed because I knew there's billions of other people in the world and I knew that regardless of how it turned out, 10 years from now, it wasn't going to affect where I was going. That I think was the mindset that kind of like helped me just go in and like not have literally a concern in the world about whether it worked out or not. Like it was pure delusion.
What made you have that drive? Because a lot of people nowadays, at least, are very like lazy to scrolling TikTok. What made you have this crazy drive to just work, whatever it was? Was it something that built it up, or just born with it?
I think there's like three things. I think the first one is that like I wanted to prove people wrong. So I didn't grow up around entrepreneurs. I didn't grow up with like any example of someone that was super successful. My parents worked very like low paying jobs. My mom actually was a stay-at-home mom. Like we did not have money growing up. I lived in a trailer at one point. Like there was no example of success there. And I love my parents. They did an amazing job like raising me. But like as far as their careers go, I didn't have an example there. So I wanted to kind of like prove to people, not in my immediate family, but more my extended family, like prove them wrong. I think I also wanted to like prove to myself that I could do it. But like the second reason was that I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Like I couldn't live with myself if I didn't tap into my potential and basically just give back everything I have. Like I don't feel like the gifts that I have are mine. I don't feel like any ability to learn that I had is mine. I think it's something that was given to me in order to give back to the world. And that's not some, like righteous claim that I'm special. I think everyone has that. I think everyone that has the ability to do something has the duty to do something. And that if you don't do that, you are wasting the gifts and the potential you were given. That very, very strong sense of responsibility is something I've felt as long as I can remember. And so I don't really know where that came from, honestly. Like God, I don't know. But I just felt like it was my responsibility to do something. The last thing I think is there's just a couple people in my life who've told me I was exceptional or told me you could do something cool. You could be a leader. You'd be really good as a lawyer, really good in XYZ. And back to the delusional part of my brain, I believed them. Like I genuinely, when somebody would tell me I was special as a kid, I actually believed that. I was like, oh, I'm special. Like I'm going to do something special. And so, yeah, that just goes back to the delusion. I think everyone's got someone that tells them, something inspiring about themselves. And it's just like, whether you believe it or not, it's a self-confidence and a self-respect thing. So those are the three things I think that motivated me to work. And I also didn't have any distractions. Like I despised like to the greatest degree, drinking, partying, like wasting time, watching TV, all of those things. When I was like 19, 20, 21, I despised everyone that was doing that. And I didn't want any part in it. And so I didn't have too many friends. I didn't have too much to do. I really only had work and that was all I wanted. So it kind of just became like the main thing that I did. It was really like an obsession. And that's kind of my personality, I think, is that I get obsessed with anything that I start. And so for the last 3-4 years, it's been business and it's worked out all right.
Did you always, despite like the regular drinking life and the friends thing, because I had to, for myself, just transition into not liking it, I guess.
So no, actually, I've never drank. I've never gone to a house party. I've never been drunk in my life. But when I was like a teenager and I would watch like a TV show or something of people drinking, I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like I can't wait to be old enough to do that. And so I definitely like used to think that was cool. It was around like 17, 18. I was homeschooled, which definitely had an influence on me, just not seeing a lot of that stuff as a young kid. And also like having to be a self-starter, having to work on stuff myself, having to learn. And I wound up being way ahead of my grade. So my parents put me into a school when I was like 16. And that's when I was like exposed to the party life, drinking, people like that. I never went to a party. I never drank myself because my rule that I'd set for myself was I wouldn't drink until I was 18. And then I turned 18. And by that point, I'd seen enough. I'd seen my friends embarrass themselves. I'd seen their relationships go wrong. I'd seen them just generally waste their time. And so I, at that point, just didn't like it anymore, just based on what I'd seen. So I never really got into it. But I think the big turning point for me was just seeing the people that were drinking, people that were partying, and seeing what their life looked like and realizing I didn't want that. And then on the other side of it, I saw the people who had a successful business and had the relationships I wanted, had the lifestyle I wanted, and none of them drank. So like I met these people when I was 19 and like they were all really, really successful business owners. And it was during COVID and stuff. And I just like was looking at their lifestyle and what they did, and none of them drank and none of them did any of that stuff. And I made a decision then that I was never going to drink. And I haven't. So I'm 23 now, have not drank. I drank once when I was like 18, but since then I haven't touched alcohol and I never will.
Did you start then networking more with people that were like-minded? Because it's so hard to find for most people, as myself included, people that have that mindset that you want to develop, that lifestyle you want. It's so hard to find those people. Like, what did you do?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that is like the most important thing, right? Like who you associate with and like the inputs that are like going into your brain, whether it's a conversation or it's a podcast or it's content. I started going to college at 18. And I was actually looking for someone to be like a mentor. And I don't know where that instinct kind of came from, because I didn't really know that I needed one yet, but I was looking for somebody to mentor me either in business or in law. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life then. And when I was 19, I met this girl. She was actually someone I'd known from like childhood, from a summer camp I went to. And she was really connected with like this whole entrepreneurial group. And we reconnected. And I basically met this couple who wound up taking me under their wing, and they would let me sit on their sales calls and they'd let me go to their like business events and stuff. And it was the biggest blessing in my life. It was pure, just like right time, right place that I happened to meet them. And that was a turning point for me, because I think I was on a good track. You know, I wasn't partying, I wasn't doing any of these things, but I didn't have direction. So it's more of like I was avoiding things, but I didn't know what I was going towards. And so this couple basically were the ones that changed my perspective on business. They were the ones that set that example of like what success looks like. And they basically just like instilled a confidence in me, because I was very shy in school. In high school, I literally ate my lunch at the nurse's office because I didn't want to talk to the other kids. I was so shy. That was probably just because I was homeschooled, so I didn't interact with a lot of kids growing up. I met this couple and they created these challenges for me, and they would have me go out and talk to like 5 strangers a day. And they would like set these like goals. And they'd be like, all right, like, how are your conversations going? Like, and I would just talk to like, I'd be at the supermarket and I'd talk to the random cash register woman, just like, anybody that would talk to me, I would just talk to them. And I started getting really confident. And the biggest turning point was just meeting other entrepreneurs. And the second piece of what they did was they basically would give me like books and podcasts, and they would just recommend me the things that had helped them. And so I started listening to podcasts every single day. I would listen to at least one podcast a day from a different entrepreneur every time. And I started like reading books like The Power of Positive Thinking, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, Start with Why by Simon Sinek. All of these books. I read probably like 40 books in that first year of meeting them as a 19-year-old kid. And that changed everything. Because it was like my network was them and the people they introduced me to, but it was also all the people on the podcasts. Those were the people that were like feeding my brain. And so all that I was thinking about was business, like impacting people, communication, all of it, like everything was around that. So I didn't have any time to think about like a party or think about, oh, what am I going to wear on Saturday? Or to think about like, oh, like, let me go on dates. Like I didn't date. I didn't do anything. I didn't have friends. I literally just listened to podcasts and talked to this woman. Her name is Heather and her husband, John. And that changed everything. And then I did start to find some other business people in my local town. I would go to networking meetings. But the most influential thing was like those 2 people who I only knew digitally because they didn't live close to me. So it's just online mentorship, basically. And then the podcasts and the books. That became the only inputs and the only thoughts in my brain was just business, positive thoughts, impacts the world, Christian values. It was all just like really positive stuff.
Were you trying anything at that time, like to build your own business?
I tried like e-commerce. I tried social media marketing. I did all of that stuff, like the typical kind of buzzwords. I did it for 2 years. I did like door-to-door sales during COVID. I was selling like online, like makeup products and skincare and vitamins. I tried everything. I would host these parties at my house and try and get people to buy my inventory because I was like buying all this stock and I couldn't sell it. I did decent. I actually did wind up building a sales team of like 4 people, and it was pretty good, but it wasn't making me that much money, maybe a few $100s a month. The biggest purpose was that it got me out of my comfort zone. I learned how to be a leader because I had to lead my sales team. I learned how to communicate, how to sell, how to host events. I learned how to, basically just like coach people. So I had to coach my whole sales team and train them on the things that I used to struggle with, like confidence, talking to people, like all that stuff. I had to train them, and I had to basically be like their parent and like take them to business events and make sure they were like okay and everything. And so the skill set I developed there was like more valuable than any of the businesses that I started. Then I found copywriting in 2024, and that was just pure luck. But that was where things took off. And it was the 2 years of building skills prior to that that allowed me to take off in copywriting so fast.
Like I got stuck for a long time, just learning, maybe taking some action, but learning. Were you stuck in that trap, or were it just action? Like, because you
Oh,
read 40 books, so
yeah. No, I was definitely stuck. It helped because I had these challenges that I was trying to live up to, but there was months where I would just like not, like there was months where I just slacked off, and I would just listen to podcasts and I would listen to all this stuff. But it does, I think it gets hard to listen to the podcast and to read the books if you're not taking action. Like eventually it starts to almost be painful to listen to other people's success if you're not getting closer to it yourself. And so it was never long that I would like slack off, but there was definitely times like, I mean, you could argue the whole 2 years leading up to copywriting, I was kind of slacking off. Like I was trying things, but I wasn't ever like trying hard enough to be successful. Cause like you can be successful in door-to-door sales, you can be successful in e-commerce, you can be successful in SMMA, and I wasn't. So I spent 2 years jumping around from thing to thing instead of just like committing and like being successful in one thing. And it's fine, like it works out now. Like the lessons had to be learned, but like there's an argument to say they could have been learned faster if I just like every time I'd read a book, I'd gone and implemented it before reading the next one. That's what I would recommend people do. It was like a journey, and I was young enough that like those years didn't cost much. Costs a lot more if you're starting at 30 and you're trying to start a business and you've got a family, you've got a job, and you've got responsibilities. Those 2 years will cost you. Whereas if you're 19 and you decide to waste 2 years just learning, it's kind of like, okay, like other people are wasting time partying, but like 100%, I definitely wasted time there.
how did you turn it around? Like, was it hard to just start being that action taker you are today?
I think that the turning point wasn't that I had to start taking more action. It was that I had to start like taking my own action. So I was really good at doing what other people told me to do and doing it well. And that's all I'd been taught to do in school, and really like all I'd been taught to do in my jobs. And in the business that I was working with, this couple, John and Heather, they would basically give me these challenges and I would go and I would do them. But when you start and you launch your own thing and you've got to figure it out on your own, you have to tell yourself what to do. And that was the turning point for me in February when I quit my job. Was like, I just hated my job so much. I hated that life, that failing in business sounded better than working that job. So I was willing to fail. And then I was like, all right, like I'm gonna figure out how to give myself the action to take. And I think some people are just not made to be entrepreneurs, because when I look back at it, there's definitely an innate just love for work that I have. It's really a struggle. If you're not an obsessive personality, it's a struggle to get into business. Like I see a lot of business owners, they used to be like video gamers. They were obsessed with video games as teenagers. And it's just that obsessive personality. If you can take that and then you redirect it to business, you know, like that's what you need. I was obsessed with like sports and dance. And so I took that and I turned it into an obsession with history at one point, an obsession with law, and then finally an obsession with business. And so if you find that like in your history, you've had random phases of your life where you are just obsessed with one thing to the point that you ignore your friends, you ignore, like you skip meals, you're just focused on that one thing, that's probably a sign that you've got that entrepreneurial trait to you. Like once I kind of figured out how to set my own goals and I did quit my job, it was like an honor to work late. Like I remember I would track it on my Oura ring and I would get so excited if I slept like less than 5 hours. I would be like, I'm grinding, like I'm part of this like entrepreneurial tribe, and definitely a bit of the hustle culture. But I was so honored just to have the ability to work for myself that I didn't even really care at first that I wasn't making money. I was actively losing money, actually. That is definitely just something that was part of my mindset and not something that I could really replicate, I don't think, because you either love it or you don't. And if you don't love it, you're probably doing the wrong thing. And there's probably a different business that would be better for you. I remember I invested $750 into a laptop. It was the most amount of money I'd ever spent on a piece of tech. And this is in 2023. And as soon as I bought that laptop, I just started staying up until like 3 or 4 a.m. editing podcasts. And that's all I was doing at the time, was just like podcasts. And so that was like my obsession. And that was where my work ethic really started, was like, I would stay up late, I would wake up early, and I was just like editing content, reaching out to people to come onto my podcast, researching podcasts. At one point, I wanted to open a podcast studio. Like that was like, it was my obsession for that period of time. But I've always had that obsessive personality. The ability to redirect that into business is like where you start making money. Just treat business like your video game.
Obsession is a big part, like trying to develop it on the right things. Do you think like there's another thing that you have to keep in mind, like going obsession blindly is maybe not the right thing to do, but
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah. Like it's like that whole concept of like keep making YouTube content until it goes viral, or keep trying until, this business works. But it's like the caveat to that is like if you're trying the same thing over and over again, your content's not getting better, your business strategy is not getting better, your sales strategy is not changing, then you're going to just keep failing. Like you're just throwing mud at the wall and expecting something to work. The way that you actually make that obsession work for you is you tweak things. Every time you take the feedback, you're like, okay, this YouTube video, the click-through rate was high, but the reach was low. Okay, so I need to tweak my thumbnail. I need to change the design, the packaging of my video, but this subject line or this topic was probably pretty good. And you have to just take that feedback and use it to inform your next kind of like try. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to keep failing forever. There's an argument to say that you actually deserve to fail forever because you're not actually evolving or changing. But if you just take that feedback, internalize it, and turn it into like a quality critique on what you're doing and you implement it, then I think it is just a matter of time before you succeed.
That learner mindset, that every action you take, you try to learn something so you can do it better the next time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess in those 2 years, like then when you bought that laptop in early 2024, then that mindset just came naturally, or?
I think if I go back to kind of like what I was saying about high school, like I would work 12 hours, Saturday, 12 hours Sunday to study for a test on Monday. Like I always wanted to be good at whatever I was doing. I didn't want to like half-ass anything. That mindset was already there. It was just redirecting it towards business. For the 2 years, like right before I bought that laptop, I was just kind of working a 9 to 5. And then from 5 to 10 p.m., I was working on my business every single day. I skipped family vacations. I skipped like celebrating my birthday, holidays, all that stuff. It was just purely because I was obsessed. And I knew I needed the 9 to 5. At the time, I had like no money saved up. So I worked a 9 to 5. And that was just basically serving to fund my business. And it was more so that I was in that second category of like, I was obsessed, but I was trying the same thing over and over again. And it wasn't really evolving enough. And I was still in this, like the wrong kind of business vehicle. And I wasn't really changing my strategy to match my goals. That's why I think like the success came when I changed into, turned the business into something that I had autonomy with. And then I basically just went all in again with the same obsessive mindset, but in the right business vehicle.
There was a time period where nothing happened. You got no results, or like didn't see the results. Like what made you believe to keep going when you saw nothing? Was it just you already had that mindset going in and just kept it along, or?
I don't think it was like a mindset thing. I think I'd just seen successful entrepreneurs and I knew that like that was part of it. That was part of what I signed up for, was not seeing the results when I wanted it. And I still go through that now. Like there's a million different things I want to see in my business, and there's things I want to do, and there's times when it's boring. And I still think back to them, like anybody successful, if you listen to Alex Rosie, if you listen to any of these like CEOs, they've gone through that. They've gone through this valley, and they're not, like excited about the business anymore, but they have to keep going. And so I can go through that now. And I just always look back to the people that are way beyond where I am and like way closer to where I want to go. And I'm just like, okay, if they went through it, or they talk about going through this, or they talk about kind of the struggle, then this is part of what I signed up for. Like when it gets hard, that's what you signed up for. And this is where most people quit. This is why 99% of entrepreneurs don't make it. It's not luck. It's not that they hit the market at the right time. It's just literally that they don't have the grit to keep going. And that's the truth that people don't want to hear. But like, that's what I reminded myself of. If you listen to an Alex Rosie podcast, which I listened to a lot back then, so that was probably something that was helpful. He talks about that. He talks about how people get bored. They can't stick with one thing. And that's why they never get past that like 100K a month mark. And so I already kind of knew that. Like I already expected it not to work at the start. And I think that even excited me. So I was like, cool, like I'm on track, because if it just like went viral from day one, well, it's probably going to crash and burn anyway. I just basically reframed everything in my mind as a positive. And that's something that is a skill. It's not something I naturally am not like a super positive person, but there's this book that changed my life. It's called The Power of Positive Thinking. A second book, The Compound Effect. Those two books were the first two books I read in business, and they changed my mindset forever. Like every single thing that would like come to me, going through your day, you got a million different things that come at you. I would reframe everything to be positive. And if anything negative happened, I would never speak it, because I was basically taught. And that woman, Heather, that I met at 19, she helped me with this as well. She was a very positive person. And anytime I would say something, she would ask me, do you want that to be true? Like if you, or basically God, and when you said something, it happened, would you say that? Like, for example, I can't get my YouTube content to go viral. She'd be like, well, do you want it to go viral? I'd be like, yeah. She's like, why are you saying you can't get it to go viral then? Like, do you want that to happen? I'd be like, no. She's like, then what is the value in you saying it? Like, just figure out what's the next thing you need to tweak to help your content reach more people. That's the only question you need to ask. You don't need to be saying anything negative. And so I had this mindset that like, there was never anything negative. It was only like, how can I turn this into a positive? How can I grow with this? What's the next step? How do I fix this? And so that problem solving mentality allows you to get through a lot of the slumps that you're inevitably going to hit as an entrepreneur. That's, I think, what helped me a lot. So that book is something I recommend for everyone. Just the Power of Positive Thinking. I forget who it's by, but it's a really good one. It's not too long.
Yeah, that mindset reframe is something I have set a lot of priority on for myself. I know that every negative can be a positive, and just making that reframe every time, wow, it helps so much.
And it is like, it genuinely, if you look back at your life, you can probably find a positive silver lining to every negative thing that's happened to you. Like everything.
No matter how tough.
No matter what it is. Yeah. Like it's crazy. I'm a type 1 diabetic. And like when I was younger and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I wasn't super negative about it, but I was always just like trying to find a cure, trying to find like a way out of it. And there isn't a cure to type 1 diabetes. It's a lifelong thing. And it's basically just an autoimmune disease that I've got to like give myself insulin. I've got like an insulin pump that I wear. I just keep it in my pocket at all times. And it just gives me insulin. So I've got like a tube attached to me. And you'll never hear me talk about it. I don't talk about it in content very often because it genuinely doesn't affect my life. It has zero role in my business life. Like a lot of people would look at that as like a negative. But for me, it's just like from a very young age, I had to, one, defend myself against doctors. There's a lot of messed up doctors in the medical world. That made me a brave person. It also made me not trust people, but in a good way. And I had to be independent. It made me question authority because there's a lot of times doctors were wrong. It made me like just be more outspoken, stick up for myself. And those traits that had to come through a really tough experience were some of the most important traits in being successful as an entrepreneur and dropping out of college and all those things. If I hadn't been diagnosed with diabetes, I don't know that I would be here. So it's a big positive. And I think a lot of people have things like that in their life and they just hadn't reframed it. And it's already had a positive impact in their life, but they just aren't willing to admit it. If you can live your life looking for the positives, not only will you find more positives and will your life increasingly grow more positive, but you're also just going to be a generally happier person and your quality of existence is going to be much higher.
It kind of just strengthens you over time. Like every time you reframe the negative, it just makes it easier to do it next time and next time until you kind of just become unstoppable. Like nothing is going to stop you besides that.
It literally becomes a default. I think if you look for the positives, like you'll tie that reason to the purpose that you have here on earth, the purpose that there's something left for you to do. I do really believe that gives you a certain confidence to put yourself in situations that maybe you wouldn't normally put yourself into.
Is that connected to that greater mission that you're working on now? Did you have that like in the past that helped you keep going through those harder times?
Yes, 100%. Like, I just didn't know how it was going to look. I didn't know being an entrepreneur was an opportunity or like even an option when I was really young. But I always had like a greater mission in mind and always felt that like if there's a gift that I've been given or an ability to acquire a skill, then it is my duty to give that back. And that is something that I plan on doing in a lot of different ways, but in a bigger picture sense, beyond just like making money or beyond just what you can buy with money. That's part of the mission that I believe is like the reason I'm here.
What made you choose then like this entrepreneurial path and that you're on right now? Like, is that then now serving that bigger mission?
I got into copywriting initially to make money. That was the only goal, was like to not have to move back with my parents. And then I stayed in copywriting because of the people I got to meet and the skill set that I got to learn. And so I love business because you're constantly having to communicate with people, improve your communication skills, improve your leadership skills, and solve problems. That's the biggest thing that you have to do as an entrepreneur, is be a problem solver. And I like really love that. And I love the ability I had to connect with like people that were doing cool things, because I think at the end of the day, like my network is going to be far more valuable than any amount of money in the bank that I can acquire. If you have something crazy happen in your life, or, some kind of attack on your business or something wild happen, I think the first thing you're going to do is not like just go to your bank account and like hire some expensive person to solve your problem. It's like you're going to call someone. If you've got the network of people that can like help you, people that have influence, I think that is so valuable. And so I look at like the business I have right now as like extremely valuable in creating a network and meeting people who have the same values as me, who are, ambitious and believe in like capitalism and believe in these values that I hold dear. And that is the main reason that I've stayed in copywriting. And then obviously, like monetarily, the more money you make, the more influence you have. The more you create content, the more influence you have. And so that's a benefit, like long term, is just like having influence, building a brand around your name. Those are the main reasons I've stayed in copywriting and then coaching.
What paths are the good to take? Like a lot of people struggle with the vehicles to take. Like you said, the vehicles you took earlier, like the dropshipping, wasn't the right vehicle to take.
Yeah.
What made you choose like copywriting and this vehicle? Were there any other great ones to take, or what?
I chose copywriting because people were asking for it. So it was like demand was there. I didn't have to go and create something or try and inspire demand. People had the demand and it was easy to learn. If I was talking to a younger version of myself, I would just recommend like you find a service, you find an actual like service you can do starting out if you have no experience and do that. And then a combination, like you can turn that into consulting or something like that. I think that is the easiest thing to sell because like when I was selling copywriting as someone who's brand new, I didn't have any experience in anything. I hadn't made any money. I needed something where the deliverable was tangible. Like the deliverable was emails or a sales page or an ad or something that like they could measure, they could see it. That was why I got into copywriting. I think it also applies to people that wanted to run ads or create graphics, run social media or do sales calls. Like those are all service-based kind of like businesses. And that's why I think they're the easiest for beginners to get into because you can learn the skill set needed to be a copywriter or to be a salesman. Like you can learn that skill set. It's much harder to convince somebody why they should buy your course or why they should take your coaching if you've never done anything. That's like something I would recommend to people if they're like brand new, they're still working a job or they're still in college or they're still like in high school. If like you want to make money online, the easiest way to make your first $1,000 or make your first $10,000 is like just find a service. It could be ads. Could be running some of these ads. It could be designing ads. It could be writing copy. It could be building sales pages. It could be like taking their sales calls or setting people onto sales calls in their DMs, that kind of stuff. It's valuable. And the other part of it is like, you want to be selling to people that have money. And so you either want to be selling to people that work a job, 9-to-5ers, or selling to business owners. And if I can write people's copy, and this is for online business owners who are clearly making money, then boom, like I can charge a lot of money for that because they have it.
When you would talk to the older version of yourself, you just tell them, try to find a service you can, like find a market that wants a service that you can fulfill.
Yeah, if you have no experience, that's what I would do. I do think that's easy if you have no experience. If you had experience in something, like let's say, for example, my boyfriend's sister is like really good at sailing. She teaches sailing lessons. She's been sailing for the last 10 years. Like she's like an expert with like water sports. And so she could create a school community and charge low ticket and help people get started in sailing. That's a hobby. So she can't charge as much. She's not selling to entrepreneurs, but it's still something that like she's got the credibility to be able to teach. So there's a lot of different like niches like that like you could create a community around if you have experience. Personally, I had no experience. I didn't have anything I could teach except maybe like Irish step dancing, which the market for that is very small. And I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't have experience in something else. And so that's why I did that. But I think the options for a new entrepreneur to make it quickly is service where you target entrepreneurs or some kind of coaching, which is probably going to take a little bit longer because you have to like build up some content and stuff. It's less one-to-one outreach, but it is something that like is a growing market. It's exponentially growing.
What would you say would be the best steps for a beginner right now, like that wants to start the entrepreneurial journey? Like, should he start learning about AI, learning about copywriting, to finding a market? Like, what would you say?
I think step one would be like evaluate your own skill sets. So see if there's anything you already have an advantage in. If there is, go all in with that. Let's say, example with like the sailing, my boyfriend's sister, like she got an advantage there where it would make sense to start a community about something like that because she's already spent 10 years studying it. So look at your own skill sets. I, for example, didn't really have an advantage, so I had to learn from scratch. And so if you find that you don't have anything that you're really passionate about or something that you already have a good skill set in, I would just purely look at like, who do you already know? Or who can you know really quickly to get into a network, basically, of like an online network, join a mastermind or something. Or if you already know people that need content or need copyright or something, go in that niche. There's a lot of variables. It depends on who you know, what skills you already have. And if you have neither of the above, then I would just learn something that sounds interesting to you. Copywriting, ads, I would learn a skill set. I would get good at that. And then if you want to, you can continue to scale with that. Like I continue to scale my copywriting agency. I still run it. I got it to 50K a month and I'm continuing to scale that. At the same time now, I'm teaching it. I'm coaching people with their copy. So you can decide to go either route where you continue to scale it or you transition into like just teaching it. those are like kind of the steps I would take. It's like evaluate your own skill set. If you don't have one, find one that you can enjoy learning about. Learn it quickly. Sign clients in the process of learning it. Don't learn it first. So by signing clients, like you can reach out to everyone you know. You can find people in your local area. Go to networking events to meet more people. Ask them who they know that needs this service, and then start posting about content, or start posting about it with content on YouTube, LinkedIn, school, and try to find as many like in-person mastermind events that you can go to network with other entrepreneurs and tell them what you're doing. Tell them that you're a copywriter, tell them that you run ads, tell them that you do sales, and start to form that network. And that's how you're going to get the best kind of leads, the best kind of clients. And the outreach method I use, I basically would just ask people like, do you know anyone that needs a copywriter? This is what I do. I never pitched people directly. And so I maintained that goodwill and that trust. And that's a huge advantage. So that's how I would go about it. Those are the steps I would take, just to like get your first few clients. And then from there, you can let the content and like document what you're doing, let that do the work for you.
You've seen how she went from zero to over $31,000 a month within 6 months. Now it's your turn. I built a step-by-step mini course from this exact interview, and it's linked below. That's your next step, and her socials are as well linked below. Remember, the only difference between where you are and where she is at is that she started and didn't give